Hey there. So today I'm going to do an oil change on our Onan 5500 generator. First thing I've done is I've used a bungee cord to wire open the door because it doesn't have a stay on it, and I'm underneath the slide out to do this oil change. So first thing I did is I pre-warmed up the engine. I ran it for about 10 minutes to get the oil nice and warm so it drains out faster, and it's very cold out here today, and it's going to make it a little easier for me to change the oil when everything I'm messing with is warm instead of ice cold. First thing I like to do is put on a set of gloves, and this keeps my hands clean and allows me to take the gloves off and have clean hands to mess with other things. So most generators, there's going to be a drain plug on the bottom that you're going to need to take off. I'm lucky my generator does not have a drain plug. It actually has a valve that I open, and it drains oil straight down out of a little spout. So the first thing I'm going to do is take a couple of paper towels off the roll I brought out here, and I'm going to take the filler cap off. The reason why you want to take the filler cap off is it reduces and relieves the pressure in the crankcase and allows the oil to flow out easily. If we didn't take this off, the oil would glug out very slowly. The same with your car. If you change the oil, you need to take out the filler cap, and that allows the oil to drain out. So what I like to do is take this plug, this oil dipstick plug right here, wrap it in a paper towel, set it off to the side, then I don't have to worry about it getting all dirty. Okay? So now I'm going to open up the drain valve very carefully. Now, before I use this tool to open the valve that drains the oil out, I have set up some cribbing underneath here to hold the drain pan up as close as I can to where the oil is going to come out. And the reason why is because it's a little windy out here today, and I don't want it to blow the oil all over the place on the ground. So I'm just doing this to make my own cleanup a little bit easier. So now I'm going to use my tool to open the valve. Most generators, you change the oil every 100 hours. 100 hours of running time on a generator typically is very close to the equivalent of running about 3,000 miles on the oil in your car. Some people like to go longer than that, but it's the lifeblood of the engine. So why run it out to the maximum so that it puts more wear on the engine? Dirt and contaminants in the oil is what wears the engine out. So if you want to make something last a long time, if you want to get 5,000 hours out of your generator, change the oil more often. Same with if you want to get 200,000 miles out of the engine on your vehicle, change the oil at 3,000 miles. You know, don't go 10,000 miles. Even if the oil says it can do that, it doesn't mean that it's a good idea for a long life. And now that I have opened the valve, you can see the oil draining out, and right there is the valve that I opened up. And it's going to take about 20 minutes for my oil pan to drain out. This generator holds 3.5 quarts of oil, including the oil filter. So it's kind of like a small car. So through the magic of TV, we will be right back. Okay, so most, if not all, Onan generators call for using 1540 motor oil. And if you have ever bought the Onan oil, it is very expensive. It's $10 to $12 a quart, and it's not even synthetic. So what I've started doing is I use the Shell Rotella oil, which is made for most diesel truck engines, and it's 1540. This is full synthetic, and you can get 4 gallons at Walmart for 24 bucks. So, because my engine holds 3.5 quarts, I don't want to measure 3.5 quarts into the engine because that's a lot of work. So what I do is I measure out, I pour out 1/2 quart out of this 4 quarts into another container, and then all I have to do is pour the entire contents of the of the rest of the gallon in there. And it saves me the time of having to do a lot of measuring. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for 8 ounces of oil, or actually I'm going to look for 16 ounces of oil, 1 pint, poured out of this big container. And I'm watching it as it goes in. And I always pour just a little bit more. That way I'm making sure that I'm not overfilling. And there I am at 16 and a little bit over. I'll probably pour just a little bit back because I went a little over. I've got about 20 ounces. So I'm going to pour just a little bit back. And I have done this already many a times, and this is a very, very easy and very effective way of doing it. So now I've got probably about 18 ounces of oil in the container, and I have that in case if I ever needed to add any oil. Put the lid back on in case if we spill it. Put the lid back on the big one so that we don't spill it, and that would be an absolute tragedy. And now all I have to do is just pour this entire thing in, and I don't have to worry about measuring it out. Okay, now the oil's been draining for about 15 minutes, and we're to the point where it's just starting to just drip out. And that's about as far as we need to go. There's probably still maybe an ounce of oil left in there, but that's no big deal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close the drain valve all the way again. And then I'm going to snug it slightly with the pliers. Make sure that it doesn't come open during vibration, which would be a tragedy. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the oil filter. Now, when I remove this oil filter, the oil is going to come out of this little lower valley here, which directs it, unfortunately, to drain right out here into the open on the pan. So what I do is I like to just put kind of a stack of paper towels here to absorb that, and then I get another bunch ready to wipe out the inside after I get it out. I'm also at this time going to take my cap and put it back on just to make sure that no dirt gets in there until I add the oil in. I don't need to put it on tight. Leave it kind of loose. Now, being that I do not have an oil filter wrench for this, I'm going to have to go grab my tool. I did not bring it with me. So what I use instead of an oil filter wrench is I just use a large pair of channel lock pliers, which I can put around here very gently, and I can use that to just gently turn the filter out. And I know that when I get it out to a certain point, it's going to make a dripping mess. So I bring the pan over so that once I get it to drain out right here, I'll turn it upside, and I'll bring it over and then I'll turn it upside down and I'll put it right there and let it drain out. So I'm going to do that right now. And I try to just do this quickly because it's going to make a big mess. And then I bring it over here, turn it upside down, and I'm letting all that oil drain out. And like I said, it makes a nice little mess, but that's okay. We planned on this mess and we're just going to deal with it accordingly. And I am not chintzy when it comes to using the paper towels. I will liberally use a fair amount to get this all cleaned up. That's what they're there for. Now I'm cleaning off the surface of where the old oil filter went and where the new one's, the mating surface where it's going to go back on there. We'll wipe it off here on the front side. I'm going to leave some paper towels down in here again. And then I'm going to wipe this out one more time, really good. And I'm wiping off the threads that the oil filter is going to go on. Wipe the face. Wipe where I got it on the side of the RV. Now I'm going to take the oil filter and I'm going to put a little bit of new clean oil on the surface of where the gasket goes, and this is to season the new gasket. That's very important. You don't ever want to miss doing that. Some people think it's not very important. If you don't do that to your oil filter before you put it on, it will never come off. I know that sounds strange, but it's absolutely true. You will never get it back off. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to thoroughly clean my hands as good as I can so that I get a little bit of traction on these gloves. And I'm going to install the new filter in place. And it only goes 3/4 of a turn from when it seats. When it seats is when it very first feel it grab, okay? So now I'm only going to go 3/4 of a turn from here, okay? So there's a half, and there's 3/4. That's it, I'm done. I did it without a filter wrench. That's also the advantage of using gloves, is that they get traction. All right, now I'm going to move this entire setup out of the way because I don't need it anymore. And this is the oil pan I recommend anybody use. It holds 16 quarts of fluid. The fluid drains down into this hole, and then you put a cap on it, and then you close this up to plug it, and then you can put it upright, and you can carry this into an auto parts store where they take used oil, and they will take that dirty oil for free, and you can pour it out into their container and then take it back, and you're ready to go for the next time. Okay, now I have taken the rags and the oil filter after it had drained out completely, and I put them into a Ziploc bag to be then thrown away at any normal trash receptacle. Now we're going to do the fun part, which is to add oil back in. Okay, so once again I'm going to remove my filler cap. I'm going to put my funnel in there, set the filler cap up on top. I'm going to get some paper towels ready for when I am done with the funnel. And now I'm going to take my gallon and I'm going to very carefully start adding the oil in. And I already have it pre-measured, so I know that I'm basically just pouring in the entire contents of this gallon. And the hole on my funnel is very small, so it's going to take a couple of minutes to pour this all the way in, which is no big deal. When you're doing something like this, honestly, you want to try to have some patience. If you hurry, you're going to make a mistake. If you make a mistake, you're going to end up doing it wrong, and you might end up having to redo parts of it again, and that can be quite messy and expensive. Now, to give you an idea, most shops that work on Onan generators are going to charge you somewhere between $100 and as much as $150, possibly even more, to do an oil change like this. Now that would also include the materials, but the oil filter I'm running is an Onan filter. I could get a generic filter from an auto parts store that would work just as good, but I like to use the Onan filter because it's a little longer and I happened to be close to an Onan dealer when I bought several of them. I believe they're like 14 bucks, so this entire oil change is less than $40. And it's done with full synthetic oil, and my generator would probably go what it actually recommends in the book, which is 150 hours before it would need to be changed again. I probably will change it at somewhere between 100 and 125 hours the next time. We do have solar and don't really need the generator very often, but this time of year it gets dark early and we like to watch a lot of TV, so our inverter chews the batteries up, and it's nice to run the generator for an hour at night and top things off. As well as if it's a cloudy day, sometimes you're going to have to run the generator a little bit. And I'm not afraid to run my generator. Some people try to or worry about how many hours they're putting on their generator or whatever. We've put close to 900 hours on the generator in 1 year. Now, part of that time was without solar, but that's what they're there for. They're there to be used. And if you take care of it and do your oil changes, this is the 8th time I've changed the oil on this generator since we've owned this RV. We've been on the road with it now for just slightly over 1 year. If I had paid to have all those oil changes done, we would have spent easily $1,200 to $1,300. And I'd be willing to bet we've only spent just a few hundred, maybe several hundred total for all the times I've changed the oil. This Shell Rotella oil is excellent stuff. I have a number of friends that run this in their road race motorcycles. We're talking about your crotch rockets that run 14,000 RPM. This is good oil. I'm a firm believer in running synthetic oil. It takes a lot more to break down a synthetic oil than it does a regular oil. I still change it out just as often as if it was non-synthetic oil. But synthetic oils also do a better job at keeping the inside of the engine clean. You know, everybody has their own preferences. I've been running all of my equipment this way for the last 35 years that I've owned cars and equipment and been taking care of my own stuff. I've owned a number of cars with low miles, high miles, what have you, motorcycles, you name it, lawnmowers, whatever. I have yet to have one piece of equipment I've ever owned break or break down. I'm just saying. And it's getting close, almost there. Now, if I wanted to, when we're done, I could pour the used oil out of this container back into this container and take this in. That's what a lot of people do. They take the old oil in the container that they bought the oil in. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you live someplace where your trash company will take your oil for recycling, you can put it into a container just like this and leave it out for the recycler. Believe it or not, they actually get paid for used motor oil because it gets recycled in some fashion. So don't think that it doesn't, it just goes back into the earth. And they actually a lot of times do things with it. So that's it, container's empty. We're going to drain the last little bit out of the funnel. Okay, now I'm going to clean the funnel. And I'm going to put my rags back inside, which helps to keep the funnel clean. And now I'm going to set it off to the side, and I'll deal with that in a minute. I'm going to take my fill plug, I'm going to put it back in, and then what we're going to do is we're going to start the generator and we're going to run it for about 1 minute and then shut it off, and we're going to check the oil and make sure that the oil level is correct. Right now there's no oil in the oil filter, so this will read full, over full. Once we get oil circulating through the filter, then we'll get a true reading on the oil, and we'll see if I did it correctly. It should read just right. Sounds good. Alright, that should be enough. Take out our filler plug, which also has a dipstick on it. I'm going to make sure I wipe this really, really clean and really, really dry. And right now you can see there's nothing on it. And now we can see by looking at it, all of the oil hasn't drained out of the filter yet, which would give us our true reading, but you can see that it is towards the upper end of the acceptable range on the dipstick. And remember, I went about 2 ounces shy on the oil, which is sitting in my other container. I can always add that in. And once all the oil drains out, after about 2 to 3 minutes out of the entire inside of the engine down into the crankcase, that level will come up slightly. But I know now that I am good to go. So that's it. The oil change is now complete. We've got new fresh oil filter in the engine, and it's all good to go. So now I'm going to take and put all this stuff away. Final thing we do whenever we do any kind of oil changes or maintenance or anything is we have a logbook that we keep, and it's for the RV, our Navigator, the Razor, and the generator, so that we know we can keep track of all 4 of those oil changes. And we started keeping track when we hit the road. So the first oil change was on the Navigator, 12/28/19. Actually, those were supposed to be 18. The wrong year was written on there. Okay, so I guess right off the bat we failed. So you can see we've kept the logbook all the way through.
Sure?
I'm positive. Nope, those were...
we hit the road November of 2018.
Right, those were all supposed to say 18. That's when we changed the oil in them. 12/28, that was supposed to be 18.
We didn't buy it till September of 2018.
12/28, yeah, but we did an oil change in December of 18. That's supposed to say 18.
That one's supposed to say 18, not January.
Right. But as you can see, we go all the way through to where we are current. The last time I changed the oil in the generator was 10/7/19. And yes, we will leave this clip in to see that we're only human. And sometimes me and Sue together will talk back and forth about what is best. So now, the last time I serviced the generator, I did the air cleaner, the fuel filter, the spark plugs, and changed the oil. So this time I'm going to put gen oil, and what's today's date?
27th.
12/27/19.
And you can tell that I provided the notepad for this maintenance log because of the Hello Kitty.
Good to go.